Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm here with comedian Brian Regan.
Hi,
Give him a round of applause.
Hi. I haven't done anything yet, but I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian's been touring all over the country and the Midwest here for a little while. He was gracious enough to stop by Google for your first visit, I understand, to Google.
Yes.
All right, do you use Google?
I don't know what it is. No, of course. Yes, I use Google quite often. Years ago, when I first had the internet, I was amazed that you could find something with a search engine. So the first one I used was Ask Jeeves.
Right,
I don't even know if that exists
yeah.
anymore. And then somebody said, you should try Google. And this was, years back. And I was like, Google? So then I did Google, and of course, it's so much more efficient than Ask Jeeves.
Well, thank you for the compliment. No, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Can you teach us a little bit about your comedy through some questions I'm going to ask you? I'm taking an online class from Steve Martin now, a master class. So can we turn this into a mini master class from Brian Regan?
Yes, but I'm not going to be able to top anything that Steve Martin has instructed you.
He was one of your, part of your inspiration, correct?
Yeah, I was always a big Steve Martin fan. Even before I wanted to be a comedian, I loved his comedy, very, very silly. His character was silly, but the comedian was very smart. So you laughed on two levels. It was a double barrel thing. You laughed at the goofiness of the character, but you laughed at the brilliance of the guy who created it.
Right, that's very rare to find.
But with my kind of comedy, I just lack the brilliant part. People just laugh at the goofiness of the character, and that's it.
Yeah, come on. Well, let's take it back to when you were maybe a child. Were you funny as a kid? Did you make people laugh at dinner parties, things like that?
Well, not at dinner parties. I was kind of shy. I would make my close friends laugh and my family laugh, but if I was in school or something like that, I was a little afraid to put myself out there, you know. One of the first times I remember getting a laugh was inadvertently. I was in a car with our family, and we were passing a funeral procession, and I asked my dad if he had ever seen a real live dead man. And I wasn't even trying to be funny. And my dad laughed for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, what just happened there, you know? And then I put it together, and I was like, oh, that makes no sense. And so I started thinking, oh, those kind of things get reactions, you know?
Right. The things kids say can be pretty brilliant sometimes.
Yeah, or dumb.
Or dumb, yeah, both. And you went to college in Ohio, I understand, Heidelberg College?
Heidelberg College in Tiffin, Ohio. Has anybody heard of that?
No.
I didn't even hear of it until like my sophomore or junior year, but very small school. It is now a university. My college graduated before I did. They went from a college to a university. I wish they still called themselves a college. I thought that was quainter and all that, but yeah, I went there for longer than I should have, and I ended up dropping out of college to try stand-up comedy.
Okay. And you went to college to play football, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what brought you over to the comedy passion?
I think after 2 days of playing football, the coach took me aside and went, there might be something you're more qualified for. No, actually, I was a pretty decent football player. And I went to college thinking I was going to be an accountant. And after some accounting classes, my eyes would like glaze over in the back of my head, like I just can't do this. And I went and I talked to my college football coach, and I said, I'm kind of disillusioned. I said, I love playing football, but I don't know why I'm here academically or whatever. And he said, you're a pretty funny guy. You make everybody laugh on the football team. I don't know if that was a compliment or not, but, and he said, you might want to consider the communication and theater arts department, which when I was a kid was like a million miles away from anything I would have ever even considered. I wasn't like a narrow-minded jock, but I just was not, that was not part of my world. And so I switched majors, And I used to try to make one of my first classes was a speech class, and I used to try to make my speeches funny. They were like a class like about this size, and when I got the class laughing, it was like, and more importantly, we had a teacher, this heavyset woman who sat in the back, who would howl at my speeches. And I never had a teacher like anything I did ever. And to have this teacher like be into what I did, and plus getting the class laughing, I remember walking back to the dorm after these speeches, and I was like walking on a cloud, man. I was like, whatever that, I don't feel like this when I walk back from biology class, you know. So I knew whatever that was, I needed that. I needed that in my life, so.
That's awesome. Were you very physical in your comedy like you are now? Was it drawn out facial expressions and physicality?
When I first started, I tried everything. I mean, I just threw everything at the wall to see what would stick. You know, I didn't know where to come from. I even had props, but I had props that I didn't even need. I was so bad at being a prop comedian. Like I would talk about a product. I did a joke about a cereal called 40% Bran Flakes, and I would say, hey, have you guys seen that cereal 40% Bran Flakes? And then I pulled it out of a bag and showed it
You brought the flakes
to the audience. And they're probably like, we know what it looks like, buddy, you know? So,
sounds like it worked.
had a bag of unnecessary props. I was the unnecessary prop comic. And I thought, just saying 40% Bran Flakes is enough for these people. Anyway, so I tried everything. The face stuff, though, I never really thought about that. That just kind of came along.
Just comes natural.
Great.
Were your parents supportive of your decision to go into comedy?
Like I told you, I dropped out of college to do it. I was 10 credit hours away from graduating. Probably one of the most challenging phone calls I ever had to make to my mom and dad. And it felt to me like they were probably hearing, hey, I want to join the circus. But they were surprisingly cool in a good way. They said what most parents should say. They were like, well, you're so close to graduating, maybe you should get your degree, and then you could pursue comedy. But it's your choice, and whatever you do, we support you. So
that's wonderful. You're lucky.
Yeah, I was.
From that point on, did it work for you? Were you successful from your perspective when you started?
Well, not right off the bat. I mean, it takes a while. I started at this comedy club in Fort Lauderdale, and you know, I auditioned a few times, and then when I passed my audition, they would let me go on every night at the end of the show. They don't do it like this at any other club in the world that I know of. They would let the local comedians go on after the good comedians. And
they were opening for you.
Yeah, they were opening for us. And the club owner wanted a clear line in the sand because he didn't want the audience confused. So after the good comedians were done, there were like 3 co-headliners. Then he would have the MC go on stage and say, all right, folks, that's it for our show. Meaning the good part of the show is over. That's it for our show. We do have some local comedians who are just getting started. If you'd like to hang around and give them an audience, you're more than welcome to. So that was the environment that we went up to. So when I first started, I was always going on stage to people walking out. And I developed a whole routine about people leaving. And I would kill. I had this whole thing about the doors going and, you know. And then I got pretty good at that. And then they bumped me up to, they were going to let me open the show one time. And I get on stage and I'm like, nobody's leaving. I didn't know what to say.
You're not used to seeing the front.
Yeah, they're all like looking at me like, well, go ahead. And I'm like, well, you gotta go. So then I had to learn how to talk about other things.
So from that point, did you start visiting other comedy clubs once your confidence was up? You were.
I worked at that one comedy club for 2.5 years. I went on basically every single night. The guy who passed me, he said, audition night was just Monday night of each week. And when I passed auditions, passed meaning I was approved, he said, you can go on other nights. And I said, I don't know what the protocol is here, but would I be abusing the privilege if I went on every single night? And he's like, I've never had anybody ask that. He goes, you want to go on every single night? I said, if I can. He goes, sure. So I went on every single night for 2.5 years, and then from then I went out on the road. And I was fortunate that comedy exploded right around the time I was ready to go out on the road. Comedy clubs started opening all around the country. So I just was able to ride that wave. I was able to get gigs, not because I was any good. Comedy clubs needed comedians. If you could stand on stage for 30 minutes without melting, you could work. So that was my pitch.
Were you more dedicated than other comedians if you wanted to go on every night? Do you feel like you're a harder worker than maybe some other comedians?
Yeah, well, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I sensed that at the time. I remember there were other local guys that would look at the audience, and sometimes it was a bad audience. It was a rough audience, and they would pick and choose, and they would go, I don't want to go on tonight. And I'm like, I want to go on every night. I want to learn every night. I want to learn something. You know, if it's a bad audience, I don't care if I get 0 laughs. I'm going to learn something from the experience, and then I'll apply that the next night I have a bad audience, you know.
Would that be one of your #1 takeaways for aspiring comedians? Go on as frequently as possible, no matter what?
That's one. Another thing I tell people if they're just trying to get into comedy is I always feel it's a mistake to try to figure out what the audience finds funny. You should be saying what you think is funny. You shouldn't be like trying to push buttons that get laughs. You should be sharing what's in here with them. And if they agree, then great, that's your act, you know what I mean? But once you cross that line of what do they want, then what's the point? You know, it seems like a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Picture yourself in the audience.
That's what I do. If I'm having a bad show, I imagine myself sitting in the middle of the audience. And then I go, just make me laugh. The problem is, I usually end up heckling myself. You stink. But anyway, because I know I can do that. I know I can make me laugh. I'm not qualified to make a room full of people laugh all the time, but I know what I think is funny, so it calms me down to go, well, this I can do. Clearly, I can't figure out what these people are. So.
Well, you must have something in common with us, because a lot of us are laughing too.
Well, I mean, I get fortunate that some of the things I think of, other people also think is funny.
Tell us a
Hence
little.
this career.
Tell us a little bit about the writing process. How do you come up with new material? How much time do you spend on it?
I always like to write. That's one of my favorite things is doing new stuff. I was just talking to the guy I was working with this last weekend because I was going to be doing some new stuff in my show, and I said, that's my favorite moment, coming up to a bit that's like, it's like running on virgin snow. You know, you're making new footprints, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're going to laugh. If they do laugh, you don't know where they're going to laugh. You're just starting a brand new baby joke, you know, and you're going to, it might get nothing, and there might be nothing to it at all. But if there's something there, then you get to do it night after night and play with it, massage it, and get it better and tighter. And I love the process.
Do you have a test audience, friends, or anyone that you run your jokes by?
No, always the regular audience.
Always live on
Yeah,
stage?
yeah.
Okay. You performed last night in Toledo, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How did that go?
Not to show off. But yeah, I perform in cities like Toledo. Toledo's a cool place. I like performing everywhere. I really do. I like big cities. I like little cities. I like medium-sized cities. Speaking of medium, my daughter, when she was a little girl, was when I realized that she didn't quite know what I did. She said, "Daddy, I realized I like 3 kinds of dogs." She was like 5. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" She goes, "I like small dogs, I like large dogs, and I like comedian dogs." And I thought, my daughter thinks I'm a size.
Okay.
So,
Have you ever performed for kids at an elementary school?
not really. I do perform where kids are in the audience. It's a tricky thing. I hate the term, I hate the word, but there's no other way to describe it. I work clean, but people get the wrong idea when they hear the word. They attach a connotation to it that I'm not a fan of. You know, they think it might be something that they're not interested in. But because I work clean, people will bring their kids sometimes to the audience. Mm-hmm. And that didn't happen until I got out of comedy clubs and started playing in theaters. Because in comedy club, you have to be 18 or 21, depending on the state. And the first time I started playing in theaters, I'm backstage and people came back, "There's kids out there." And I'm like, "Really?" And I had a CD out that I guess had kid-oriented jokes on it about me playing Little League baseball and stuff like that. So I try to be respectful of the fact that people might bring younger people, but I also want to make it clear that it's not a kiddie show. You know what I mean? It's not. I'm not twisting balloon animals on stage. Now I feel like I'm making fun of people who twist balloon animals.
I make balloon animals.
It's a wonderful career, and the reason I don't do it is I just can't do it like you do it. It's a gift.
That's better.
So anyway.
Do you have a favorite venue to perform at or a favorite show? I watched your Radio City Music Hall as an example. Was that one of the highlights of your
That was
career?
certainly a big thing to be able to do that. I had lived in New York City for a few years when I was trying to, make the comedy thing continue to happen, and I never even saw a show in there. I mean, obviously I knew of the venue, it's iconic, and then to be able to do a show there was pretty cool, and it was a live special for Comedy Central. Comedy Central had never done a live special before, and I pitched that to them, and they were like, "All right, let's give it a shot." And so it was something else, yeah.
How do the networks like Comedy Central decide to do a show like that? Do they actually send people out to watch your shows, or is it all word of mouth from the industry?
Well, no, the people who come out are buying tickets to see the show. I hope that's what happened.
Of course.
I hate to think they just got a bunch of audience fillers, but no, it's in front of an audience of people who want to see my show, mm-hmm. and they just happen to film it, But the live thing was pretty scary, Not scary, it's too strong a word, but it was like a challenge because I needed to. Usually, when you do a special, you do more than one show, and if you mess up a joke in one show, you can pull the better version from another show and cobble it together. Mm-hmm. But live, every moment had to be on the money.
I think it went well. I didn't see any.
I appreciate it. I messed up a few things, but I was able to fix them in the moment. Like I left out a punchline of one bit, and I goofed up a transition, but I've done it enough where it's like, okay, I got to fix this immediately, and then I fixed it and moved on.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people don't try what you do because of nerves and fear that they'll freeze up. Have you ever frozen up on stage and not known what to say?
Yes, I have. I've had some horrible experiences. Absolutely terrible. I had one on Letterman. I did Letterman, and I was very fortunate. They'd let me on that show a number of times. And usually I would just do stand-up, but occasionally I would do panel, meaning this, in addition to the stand-up. And on this one episode, I did the stand-up. It went well. I was happy with that. I go and sit down and do panel. And they do a pre-interview, which we haven't done. All of this is right off the cuff. They do a pre-interview. And so the pre-interview was, Dave Letterman was going to ask me if I've been taking care of myself. And then I was going to go into a routine about going to the eye doctor. So I do the stand-up. I go sit down. He said some nice things. He goes, so are you staying in shape? That's not, are you taking care of yourself? And I'm trying to figure out in the moment, how do I get from that to eye doctor? And I went, am I staying in shape? You know, and I just kind of like hummed and hawed, and then I took a sip of water, and I'm like, get the eye doctor, get the eye doctor. And he's looking at me like, what the hell's the matter, you know? And I said, yeah, I'm staying in shape. And then I said, I recently went to the eye doctor. And he said, well, that'll keep you in shape.
Tough transition there.
And then I did my eye doctor routine. And the whole time I'm going, man, that looked horrible. It just looked terrible. So those things will happen, yeah.
Do you rewatch your shows or performances after?
I never watched that one. No, I watched that one to learn from it. But if I do a TV thing, I will watch it once, maybe twice. I don't like watching myself. You know, I like listening. I tape my show every night, audio, and I listen because I'm working on jokes. I'm working on the words and the beats and the moments. But the watching part, I'm not that into.
So you listen for the laughter. Are there certain things in particular that cue you off?
Yeah, like go, what's a better way of saying this? What's a better way of saying that? You know.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite joke or topic that you like to perform?
I'm not gonna. I went to the eye doctor. I like to talk. I like to keep switching up what I'm talking about. Lately, I've been doing. Well, the reason is. Most people, like, they find out something that works for themselves, and then they write towards that. They work towards that. It's like, oh, people see this about me, so I'm going to do more of that kind of thing. And I've always resisted that. I've always written away from, as soon as I feel like I'm being defined a certain way, I write away from that, which has probably slowed me down in terms of career, because I don't want it easy to for somebody to hang their hat on what I do. Oh, he's the guy that does this. I don't want to be that. I want to be, who knows what he does, you know? For a while, I did a lot of jokes about feeling stupid, you know, feeling stupid fantasies, and I would go over the top with them, you know, like saying "you too" when you get out of a cab at an airport, you know? And the driver goes, "Have a nice flight," and you go, "You too, you too, you have a nice flight too." So I had jokes like that. And then I would start reading in the, you know, in reviews, oh, Brian's the guy who feels stupid all the time. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to be that all the time. So I started writing anger fantasies of things that upset me. People trying to stick stuff in the overhead rack and a plane that's not going to fit in there. And I would run up there, hey, does that look like it's going to fit? You have this much room, you have a dead yak. So I did anger fantasies, and then people started writing, O'Brien always crouches down when he performs. He crouches and prowls the stage. And I said, I'll show them. I'm going to walk erect. You know, so I always write away from what I think people are beginning to figure out about me.
People try to corner you into it.
Yeah, and I don't want it.
Right. Do you have peers that you collaborate with on your comedy? Jim Gaffigan, Seinfeld, any of your?
Well, I mean, we're all friends and we all admire each other and what we all do, but we don't necessarily sit down and work on bits together. I did that one time in New York years ago. A group of people said, let's all get together and work on each other's acts, you know? And I was like, okay. And we all met at the Improv Comedy Club in the afternoon. And each person had like 5 minutes, and you would throw out a brand new premise that you were working on, and then all these other comedians would like come up with jokes that could help you with your premise. And hopefully you had a premise. It'd be like, hey, I just joined a health club and I feel inferior when I go to the health club. I feel like everybody else is bigger and stronger than me, and that's your premise. None of the people would write stuff. So we get to this one guy and he goes, I want to do something about travel.
Okay.
Okay, that's my premise. So he just wanted us to write an act for him. You know, like, you need something more than travel, buddy. You know. So, and I'd rather come up with it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the fun, is when an audience laughs at something you thought of, you've made a connection.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else thought of it, that's boring to me. Then you're just a conduit, you know. I want the thought to have come from my brain, and these people in the audience are hearing it and receiving it, and then that's beautiful.
You've performed comedy for how many years now?
I'm going to date myself. I started on the Ed Sullivan Show since 1980.
1980. How have you evolved?
Everybody's
as
doing
a,
the math going, this guy's 87 years old.
Yeah. Hopefully we can do some math in here. Okay.
People are Googling it.
Yeah, Google it. Sure. How is your...
I thought that's where I was.
How has your style changed from maybe the first half of your career to now?
Now I do anger fantasies and I stand erect. Well, like I said, when I first started, I threw everything at the wall, and then I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to describe a style, but I do like to change what I'm talking about. I started to get into that earlier. Lately, I've been doing stuff about foreign policy and guns. I did this in case you don't know what guns are. I'm a visual. I told you I'm a bad prop comic. What does he mean by gun? Oh, thank you, comedian.
Are you trying to influence more than just getting people to laugh?
I want to do jokes that both sides can laugh at, but I want to sneak a point of view in there. But I want it cagey enough where people on the other side think that I'm on their side.
So you can appeal to a broader audience.
Exactly. I want everybody laughing, but only half are going, I know where he's really coming from.
If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing as a career?
When I was in college, I had a cartoon strip for my college newspaper called The Adventures of Ned. And Ned was a stick man. And he was the only living stick man in a human-bodied world. I wasn't a good enough cartoonist to draw the same thing twice. So I thought my main character has to be a stick man because I can't draw the same guy twice. And then he was like a superhero, but he would mess up. Like if 4 people were falling out of a helium balloon or something, he would catch 3 and 1 would die.
Okay.
And I like that about him, that the world is better because of him, but there's a dead guy on the ground, you know?
So you'd be doing that?
I tried to get that syndicated.
Okay.
And I put a bunch of things together, and there's some book that teaches you how to get stuff syndicated, and I sent it to this syndication company, and they sent me a rejection letter, and I didn't realize I had not yet learned the word tenacity. I was like, well, I guess I can't be a cartoonist.
One rejection.
Like that was it. I just wrote that off instead of going, well, no, try over here, try over here. I sent it out to one place, they sent me a rejection letter, and I closed that part of my life off.
So that could be another tip.
Good lesson for kids, right? If somebody says no, believe them.
Switch. Scott Adams, the Dilbert cartoonist, actually has a similar story, yet he stuck with it. He said, you know?
That's the good ending.
Yeah, so.
That's the good ending to that
But he
story.
didn't consider himself a great cartoonist by any means. So.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
He has a good book out, too. So.
So that's what I would be doing. I hopefully would be a cartoonist.
Yeah, okay. We'd actually like to have some Q&A with the audience here. So now's your opportunity. We'd open it up. Is that okay with you, Brian? Have some
Sure.
Q&A?
It
All
is okay with me.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's weird that he's walking to a microphone when he was literally 4 feet away from me. He's walking further away. No, I'm joking. No. I know this is for people.
For the recording.
So I'm wondering, Google owns YouTube as well.
Okay.
I
didn't know that.
And so I'm wondering how YouTube has changed your comedy routines. And the reason I ask is I know when you used to have a special, then all of a sudden you'd have to write all new material. And now every day, your comedy routines are showing up on smartphones. So I'm wondering how you balance that of creating new jokes when sometimes your jokes are showing up the next day on YouTube.
That's a great question. I like the idea of, I wish I could decide when a joke was ready for public consumption, and it used to be like I would be working on a Letterman spot or a Tonight Show spot. So I was working on those 5 minutes, but while I was working on that, I was working on whatever the next hour would be, a special or a DVD. And then once I did an hour, I considered that material done, and I started working away from it and replacing it with a new hour. But like you say, and we try to stop this, we ask people not to video during shows, but you get people. I had a woman, I'm on stage one time, she was holding an iPad. Like she's giving it to me as a gift. She was sitting right in the front and she's just holding it. And I'm like, are you giving that to me? She goes, no, I'm taping you. And I went, oh, well, that's not cool, right? She goes, no, I like you.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, and so I said, well, I appreciate that, but I would like to think that these jokes are just for us here. Mm-hmm. I said, I'd like to decide when they're ready for the rest of the world. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. And she got embarrassed. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, like she truly didn't know. But the bad thing about when people tape and put it on is, like I was saying earlier, every joke is in a different level of development. There are some jokes that are brand new. They're not ready yet. I'm in the process of working on them. And if somebody tapes it and puts it on YouTube, I don't read comments anyway, but I used to, and I don't anymore. And somebody can make a bad comment, go, well, that's not very funny. And it's like, I didn't say it was. It would be like you put brownies in the oven and somebody just walks in and takes them out and the oven didn't ding yet. I didn't pull them out of the oven, you pulled them out of the oven. It's the same with somebody putting a clip on YouTube when it's not ready. And there's a lot of comedians trying to fight it. And probably other artists as well, but there's these bags that people, sometimes you go to an event and they have these bags that you got to put your phone in. They won't even let you into the venue unless you put your phone, and they lock it. You can have your phone with you, but you can't have access to it. I don't go that far yet, but we do ask people not to tape. But people do it anyway. You see them and you look at them and they're like.
Right. Maybe you can call them out and make fun of them publicly. No.
But then it takes you off your thing. So.
Right. Okay. Other questions? Thanks, Brian.
I'm not going to talk into the dead mic, but you're notorious, as you already mentioned, for being clean. Do you have a favorite dirty joke or a dirty joke that you enjoy?
I didn't set this up.
No, it's great. But I don't know if I can. I'll try to do a clean version of a joke I used to do. I don't even know if this is possible, but it has a bad word in it, and I use the bad word many times in the punchline. So I used to do a thing about diagramming sentences. I have this whole school routine, which is out there, but I used to end it by saying our teacher used to try to teach us how to diagram sentences. And I said I grew up in Miami, and we had a new kid from New York City who had moved down, and he sat next to me in class, and the teacher was at the board saying, does anybody have a sentence they want to try to diagram for the class? And this kid next to me said, go F yourself. That's the clean version. So the teacher got flustered, and she was like, oh, okay, Mr. Big Shot. Why don't you see if you can come up here and diagram that for the class? And I said, and that was a bad move, because he knew how. I said, he came up, he grabbed the chalk, and he said, all right, what is the noun? The noun is you. You don't hear it, so it's understood. That goes in parentheses. Now, what do you do? What is the action?
All right, we got that.
Now, you F whom? Who receives that action? Yourself. Go is a helping verb. It helps F. So you F, you go F yourself. And it used to, do well. And then when I was doing my first special ever on Showtime, that's when I drew a line, because people were saying, you have to close with that, because I closed with the school thing. I think I closed with the school thing. They said, you have to do that. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. Because I don't want to do all clean and then end with that. I want it to be more consistent. So
Right, makes sense.
that's why nobody knows who I am. If I had done that, I would be on parade floats. There's the go F yourself guy.
You might not want that. All right, next question.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming out. We appreciate having you.
You're welcome. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, no problem. So we've, at least I have, and I'm sure that you guys are familiar with the narrative of mental health in comedians or loneliness with Robin Williams and kind of other notable cases like that. And I guess it makes sense because in my mind, you guys kind of just go out and try to tell the world how you see it. People laugh at you and pay money to laugh at you for that. But have you encountered that? And if you have, how has the landscape of that within your profession changed with people like Robin Williams in the last, 37 years?
Well, Robin Williams, was brilliant, and it's unfortunate, obviously, what happened to him. I met him 2 or 3 times, just very briefly. He was very quiet and sweet off stage. He was almost deferential, which was so bizarre. He would say, hey, how are you? And you're like, you're the guy that gets on stage and does that? So everybody that has met him, and again, I only met him a handful of times, has said that he's just a really sweet, nice guy. Who knows what's going on in people's brains and in people's minds, I don't know if comedy has more people with issues than other professions. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but there is something weird about wanting to get on stage and subject yourself to it. It's not a fun experience to bomb. I'm sure that has nothing to do with why he did what he did. I'm sure there was much deeper issues, but I'm just talking about the weirdness of getting on stage and wanting acceptance from a room full of people is sort of it's a weird personality trait. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question or.
Good enough. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in Fort Lauderdale, you went on like every night, right? 5, I don't know, it's 7 days a week. When you're going up and you do your 5 or 15 minutes, are you doing new material each time, or are you the door closing guy? What if a crowd or people could show up who've heard your bit about them leaving? Are you? What's kind of what was your starting method for coming up with new material, and how often were you doing it?
Well, it's hard to switch it night after night. Your hope was that the audience was different each night, but people did start to come back. And I knew it was time to go when I used to have this bit where I did a fake impression And I would say, hey, y'all like impressions? And people go, yeah. And I go, all right, I'd like to do this. And then I would turn around and pretend like I'm doing something with my hair. And I'll go, you got anything to eat, man? You got anything to eat? Because I'm starving. And then they would like look at me weirdly. And I'd say, that's Randy Johnson. He lives across the street from me. It sounds just like him. A lot of people think it looks like him too, but I don't think it looks like him, but it does sound like him. So that was the joke. And then it started to get where some people would know, like I would go, you got anything to eat, man? Because I'm starving. And one night a guy went, Randy Johnson. And I was like, so I pretended like I didn't know what he was talking about. I would go, huh? No, that's Ed Brown. He lives across the street from me. So that happened a few times. And then one night I go, you got anything to eat, man? Because I'm starving. And a guy goes, Randy Johnson. I went, no. And another guy went, Ed Brown. It's time to go on the road.
Excellent. Tony?
So I would say at Google we're pretty politically correct culture, but I bet a lot of people in the audience also will laugh at stuff that's probably politically incorrect or potentially offensive. And I'm kind of wondering about that from your standpoint as a comedian. Like, what is it that draws people in sometimes to material that is politically incorrect or offensive that they wouldn't in other parts of their life necessarily endorse or be supportive of?
Even though I work the way I work, I think everything is fair game. I think every topic is fair game, every subject matter is fair game, all words are fair game, but it all comes down to context and what are you trying to say? And hopefully you have a good message at your heart. If it's hateful, I support your right to say it, but I'm not as into that kind of comedy as somebody who might use offensive language or talk about tricky things, but still has a good message. So it's weird. I mean, we live in a climate where a lot of people are afraid to say certain things, but I think everybody should be able to say whatever they want. I mean, I draw the line at violence, and I draw the line at, destruction and stuff like that, but thoughts and ideas should just be out there. And if you disagree, debate it, win with your argument.
Great. Well, Brian, I think we're going to wrap up this
We ended
interview.
up super serious.
Do you want
I
to?
gotta slip on a banana peel or something to close this out. I feel like that's when you decided to wrap it up. Oh, he's getting into some scary
I'm
territory.
like, the kill switch on here. Any last words of advice for aspiring comedians watching this?
If it's something you want to do, man, it's in your heart, go for it. And you're going to have bad shows. Don't let that stop you. Just keep rocking and rolling.
Thank you. That's been amazing. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you all.